Oh my goodness, I've just listened back to the recording that I've done for the intro of this episode. I have to apologize in advance because in a few minutes when you guys listen to the intro, you're going to hear my kids in the background like yelling, screaming, and calling out to one another. Like they're just outside. They're not even right outside my window, but they're out the front of the house. And I did not realize. I must like zone out when I'm doing my recordings because I didn't realize that they're like having a grand old time whilst I was recording the intro to this episode. So anyway, parent life, #mum life. This is how we roll. I'm not going to re-record it. My apologies. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Emotionally Intelligent Parenting Podcast. I'm Stephanie Pinto, your host, and I am a mum of 2 and a wife to 1. I'm here in Sydney, Australia. So I want to say you're welcome if you haven't heard any of my podcast episodes before. If this is like the first one you're stumbling across, well, welcome. Thank you for being here. I hope you find this episode and all the others, if you listen, somewhat insightful and sometimes entertaining and relatable, because like as well as having guests, sometimes I will just share my own stories and experiences, and I think they're really helpful for parents out there just like you, I hope. So welcome. I love all things emotional intelligence. You might have guessed that because that's the name of the podcast, Emotionally Intelligent Parenting. I will speak on, write on, teach about and talk about emotional intelligence till the cows come home, because I just know how impactful and how empowering it is for parents and for kids, and for teachers and for therapists as well. So whoever you are, welcome. I do want to say that although we are like far from perfect parents here in my house, and our kids still have big emotions from time to time, meltdowns and those huge like emotional outbursts, they're actually so far few in between now. We have listening and problem solving as our go-to strategies when things get tricky, and generally our home is a really nice place to be. And that's not because we're these special like aliens. It's because we are learning and applying emotional intelligence as much as we can. Also, actually, our home is a punishment-free zone, and we're able to do all this because we know how to handle our emotions. We don't use those knee-jerk reactions. We understand our kids' emotions and behavior, and yeah, we work together to kind of solve problems as calmly as possible, and respectfully, and like a team. So I kind of hope that gives you a bit of insight into our home and how things work. Again, not that we are perfect, but things are so much less stressful. They're more calm and easier than they ever were before. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the Darug Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I live, work, and record this podcast. I pay my respects to all First Nations people, elders, and ancestors, and I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and I stand in solidarity towards a shared future. Okay, so today's episode is a beautiful one. This is someone who I met online, and we have chatted on and off for the better part of, I don't know, I want to say like a couple of years maybe. She is so kind and generous and open-hearted, and she shares so fully around how we can support our kids with their emotions and how we can support ourselves as parents. This is Kristina Manning. She is from Calm Minds. I will put all of her links and where you guys can find her in the show notes so you can go and track her down afterwards. She really helps parents to transform their communication at home, and also helps them obviously to transform the way they parent and show up for their kids. We actually talked about the concept of updating our software as parents, which is huge. Like I feel like that is the first thing that we need to do as parents, because pretty much most of us were raised in that old, traditional, outdated, to be honest, parenting style, right? So she speaks to the science, which I love. You guys know I love that. And we kind of centered a bit of the conversation around what do we do when we feel like all we're doing is yelling at our kids and they only listen when we yell. No other strategy works. Nothing else works to get them to cooperate or to comply or to do what needs to get done. So I really loved that we talked about that. She talks about, as I said, kind of what happens in the brain, like that neuroscience part of what happens in those experiences, and also the long-term effects of yelling and what can we actually do to stop having to get to that really reactive or like loud, stressful space with our kids. So I hope you enjoy the episode. I think it's going to be a really good one. You know what? Let's just dive straight in. Okay, see you on the other side. Hello, Kristina. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Steph.
Let people know just a bit about you and your work, for those people who don't know you yet. Like, who are you? What do you do?
Well, thanks again for having me, Steph. I am Kristina Manning, and I am a peaceful parenting coach. In my previous life, I was a teacher and a school counselor, and I did a lot of work. The best thing about working in the school system was the relationships I built with families. And a lot of the families were always asking me, Kristina, how do I mirror what you're doing in the classroom at home with little Tommy? And so that was pretty much the catalyst for what made me want to create Calm Minds Parent Coaching. And I found that with my work with parents, a big theme that comes up is helping parents um, kind of transform their communication at home because a lot of parents are like, I'm yelling and I feel like that's the only thing that works, but I know that I'm probably hurting the relationship with my kiddos. So what do I do? So really, I help parents stop yelling so that they can raise happy, resilient, emotionally healthy kids, and then in turn have peaceful homes. So
So, being a peaceful parent coach, just describe maybe a little bit about what that is and kind of how it fits in really well with emotional intelligence, if that makes sense.
being a peaceful parenting coach starts with having a great level of self-awareness. So before, we can even tap into or help our kiddos, we really need to kind of look inward and have self-awareness and kind of think about how we were raised and how that might impact our parenting. Because many of us, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but many of us grew up in that traditional parenting home. I guess they call it behaviorism, where we're really just correcting the behavior, but we're not really getting underneath the surface and trying to figure out what the function of the behavior is. Like, why? What's the feeling? What's wrong? It was just more like, oh, you're, doing something really annoying, just stop it. So I help parents kind of like update their parenting software, so to speak, so that they can, understand the latest research because there's no fault of our parents. Like I grew up in that traditional home where it was just like, and I love my parents, they were wonderful, but it was very much just feelings weren't really, if we had really big feelings, it was kind of like not swept under the rug, but it actually kind of, so in a way, swept under the rug and kind of, there's no place for that right now. Oh, you're mad. Oh, you're sad. Not that my parents didn't have empathy at all. They did, but they didn't have the research that we do today about what yelling does to a child and how not only harmful but ineffective it is. So a large part of what I do and a principle of peaceful parenting is really try to help them understand themselves and be able to practice self-care and pour into themselves before they can help their children. And then we work on communication and boundaries and all sorts of stuff. But I love helping parents embody the principles of peaceful parenting and so they can nurture healthier relationships with their kiddos.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what would be let's say you have a family or a new family that you're working with, could be, people who are listening to this episode and they were
Mhm.
thinking, this sounds really good. I also feel like I yell too much. Sometimes it feels like my kids only listen when I yell. Maybe we're going
Right.
to touch on that too. But
Yes.
yeah, maybe I'll pause on my question, which was going to be where would we start? Where do you kind of start with parents when you begin supporting them? But maybe we should go first to give your insights on when parents feel like kids will only listen. They do only do what I ask when I get to the point of yelling. So that's the only thing that works. What's your kind of perspective on that? Can you shed some light?
With yelling, and a lot of parents come to me like, I swear he only listens when I yell. Well, what I talk to parents about and try to help them understand is when we do yell, and I'm not just saying when you yell at a child, but when you yell at a human, their brain goes offline. And I know that you talk about a lot the emotional hijack in your book, I think, stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the brain goes offline and kids can't access their higher thinking, their higher brain, which is, in charge of emotional regulation and decision making and impulse control and just logic, right? So one thing I say to my parents is, or my clients rather, is when you yell, think about it, when you yell at your child, just think about it as you're yelling at a brick. Actually, you have bricks in the back of you right now. And that's kind of what I say to my parents. You're just yelling at a brick. They might comply and they might say, well, wait a minute, but they do listen when I yell. Well, they might comply, but it's only because they're scared, right? All that matters in their brain at that moment is safety. And so they're just scared. So they're going to comply. But long term, the research says that what it does is it severs the relationship with the kids if you're like a frequent yeller. And by the way, to all the parents who are listening, if you yell, it's okay. We all yell. We're all human. Like, you're not a bad person. You're not a bad parent. It's just that when we know better, we do better. And so with the research now, we know that it's ineffective. And so I just try to gradually try to help parents look inside and try to uncover their triggers so that, they're able to, be aware of their triggers and know when to take a pause. I call it the mom pause. Just take a
Ooh.
pause and breathe. And, we do a lot of mindfulness and, meditation and the coaching that I do with parents to try to get them, because a parent who is really stressed out and dysregulated is never going to be able to help a child who is in distress. We all know that, right? So the very first step with parents is just working on them, talking about what their history and their childhood experiences were like and how that impacts their parenting today. And then we start working on the different strategies and mindfulness to try to get them to try to just practice just little baby steps each time they want to yell. Just try to take a pause before they do. And that seems to be really effective.
Yeah, taking a little
Mhm.
pause. Sometimes
Mhm.
it sounds easier said than done, but
Yes.
but with practice, it's possible, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I've worked with a lot of parents, and in the beginning, they have a lot of shame. They're like, "Oh, I'm a bad parent. I yell, and what's wrong with me?" And I say, give yourself some grace. We're all human. I would say that 99% of the parents I work with grew up in that home where it was, the traditional yelling, spanking, and that's just the way that it was. But again, it's not that it doesn't mean that anybody's parents are bad or grandparents are bad. They didn't have the information that we do today. So again, when we know better, we do better.
Yeah, I think that's really important to get across to people and help parents to understand because I even have moments where I'm like, oh my God, why did I do that? I should have done better. Like I'm talking about this stuff, I'm teaching about this stuff, and still I have those moments. So do you have any advice for parents who feel like, oh my gosh, today was a yelling day? Like today, it was just, you get to the end of
Yeah.
some days and you have that mum guilt or the parent guilt, dad guilt, like, and you just feel, oh, I could have done that better. Like, why did I react like
Yes.
that? What's your advice?
Remind yourself that you're human, right? And tomorrow's a fresh day, even if it's like, the next 5 minutes is a fresh, start. So don't beat yourself up. And one thing that I really, really try to stress with parents is the importance of not only self-care, but having self-compassion. And I'm sure you're very familiar, Steph, with Dr. Kristen Neff,
Mm-hmm.
like the self-compassion guru.
Yeah.
And the three components are mindfulness, being kind to ourselves, and just the relating to others and knowing that, we're not the only ones in the world that have problems or that make mistakes. And it's just about forgiving yourself. And it's so, so important to do that because parenting is the hardest job in the world. And I feel it's the most important job in the world. But also, you're modeling for your kids how important it is to forgive yourself and how important it is to, when you have mistakes, that it's okay. So you're like modeling humility. And another thing that I work on with my parents is one of the most I would say one of the most important parenting tools to put in your little toolkit is repair. So if you yell at your child, just know that you can always go and apologize, right? And again, when you're apologizing, you're modeling how to apologize. You're modeling it's okay to make a mistake. You're modeling that even grown-ups make mistakes. And so, if you're feeling bad about yourself, just go and say you're sorry. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, sometimes it
Yeah.
feels really hard though. I know that I've
Hmm.
had moments where I'm like, oh, I realize my kids are onto like they're watching TV or they're eating, like the moment has passed. And sometimes I'm
Hmm.
like, they've forgotten about it or they've moved on. And it's up to
Right.
me. Like I have to pull myself together to kind of go and say, hey, buddy, about what happened in the kitchen earlier. I'm sorry. It's hard.
Yeah, it's definitely really hard. The mom guilt is real. Like I talk to moms every single day and they think they're the worst in the world. And it's like, no, you're not. You're here. You're trying to be better. And but yeah, practice self-compassion and that'll go a long way, not just with you, but also again with your children, because then
Mhm.
they'll recognize the importance of loving themselves and embracing imperfection, and it's okay to make mistakes.
Yes, actually, can you
Yes.
talk a bit about that with the concept of it's okay to make mistakes? Because I know that there's, at least in the circles that we're in, I think there's a lot
Hmm.
that we're now seeing and seeing online, and a lot of people are posting about teaching your kids it's okay to make mistakes, modeling that yourself, that when you stuff up or mess up, owning that and verbalizing it or sharing it kind of thing. Can you speak to a little bit about why that's maybe really important or how can we do that with our kids when sometimes it is easier to just sweep it under the rug and move on?
Yeah, sweeping it under the rug and moving on. It may be easy in the moment, but then you're just going to have more guilt, right? And so again, the most important thing is, we're our children's uh higher brain. And the latest research says that the brain isn't fully developed until close to 28. And so we need to just be able to teach our kids, and I know this is a buzzword, it's been going around for a while, but having a growth mindset and knowing that our brains are, the whole concept of neuroplasticity, like when we make mistakes, we are learning. That's making mistakes are not a bad thing. When I was a classroom teacher and a counselor, I used to always celebrate mistakes. I'm like, oh, what did you learn from this? Or if I made a mistake in front of my kids, I would really try to celebrate that, like not make it a negative connotation. Everyone's going to make mistakes. We're all human. And so if we try to model that before our kids and try to get them to see the beauty in mistakes, and that there's famous people out there that have created so many incredible inventions just through mistakes. um, it's just a beautiful thing. And so I think it's just really, really important to just keep in your house, just have that mentality, oh, we spilled milk, it's not that big of a deal. Or I yelled at you. Not saying it's not big of a deal, but I'm going to apologize to you and I made a mistake. And model, model, model. That is like the most important. Modeling and repairing are the most important things you can do, I think, as a parent, um, to embrace and to embody emotionally intelligent parenting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Do you think that emotionally intelligent parents need to have it all together and be calm and not yell at their kids all the time? Like, is that where we're to be aiming for?
Absolutely not. I think that it's important to be human. It's important to model for your kids that you're human. And I think the important part, again, is if we do yell one day because we're tired or whatever, we're aggravated, again, that we make that repair. It's just in the modeling. I think in a lot of and you're right, there is a lot of parents come to me and they're like, oh, does that just mean that I have to be really perfect and I can never yell and I can never make a mistake? No, 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 no. Emotionally intelligent parenting, as you know, Steph, is all about being real, being embracing being a human,
Mhm.
and again, just I know I keep saying this at nauseum, but modeling and modeling what we want to see. So yeah, it is in no shape or form about
Yeah.
being perfect at all.
Yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
I love that. Okay, so
Mhm.
let's talk a bit about, I'm curious what your opinion is on starting to help teach our kids, explicitly teach our kids, maybe, because we know modeling is so powerful. Do we still explicitly teach our kids, let's pick some part of emotional intelligence, an emotional vocabulary? So teaching them
Mhm.
more words than just happy, sad, angry kind of thing. What's your opinion on that? What should parents be doing?
Well, I always encourage parents to have like a feelings poster or a feelings wheel kind of posted somewhere in sight, a common area on the fridge or whatever. And again, I know I keep using that word modeling, but it all starts with like, because I work with some parents who have very, very small children, like even toddlers, who are hitting or they just don't know how to express or, their feelings. So, you know, having a feelings wheel or a feelings poster on the wall to start teaching and modeling, hey, I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling angry, so I'm going to take a deep breath or whatever. So I would say absolutely that. I would say read books about feelings as much as you can. I would, in movies and TV shows, have conversations with kids about like, how do you think that character was feeling? And, because that starts to build empathy too. And then also, just like sometimes if you're just like walking in the grocery store or in the mall or something, just having, or not pointing to people really, but like just having the kids starting to notice like the facial expressions and then have a conversation later about how do you think that person was feeling or what have you. And also role playing. Like I have my parents do a lot of role playing with their kiddos with like puppets or like,
Mm,
whatever, little stuffed animals about, and they'll just role play about this character's feeling a certain way and, what do you think he or she needs? And so, yeah, I think that modeling and talking about emotional vocabulary when they're really young is very, very important because, as we know, in this field, Steph, all behavior is communication. And so,
mhm.
a lot of parents will come to me like, my kid's hitting and blah, blah, how do I get him to stop? Well, okay, let's just realize that like he's trying to communicate a need that he needs met, right?
Mhm.
And so, if he is equipped and armed with the vocabulary to start to be able to express, oh, I'm feeling mad, a lot of times, what is that saying? Name it to tame it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just have to name the feeling and identify it, and then we feel better. So yeah, that's absolutely
Yeah.
really important to start in the home at an early age.
Brilliant. And I think you kind
Mhm.
of touched on, I can't remember what you said. My brain is still a bit mushy. I'm getting over being sick. So um,
Yeah.
I want to touch on because you kind of mentioned a bit about understanding from your kids' point of view, behavior is communication. Even if our kids do not, I think most of the time, they don't consciously realize that they're not actively trying to communicate. Like, I'm going to hit my brother, and then I want you to realize that he took my thing, or, he's not sharing, or I need
Right,
help.
right.
They're not
Mm-hmm.
consciously doing that, but it's almost like an unconscious, this is the best I've got. This is I think you said, when they're equipped with more language and
Mm-hmm.
tools to be able to get their needs met. Um, so maybe can we touch on, because I think a lot of parents, I had no understanding really of child's brain development in terms of emotional development and what that means for behavior and all
Mm-hmm.
these skills that, like, I did a 4-year health science degree. Like, I should
Mm-hmm.
have, I feel like I should have known this stuff, did not realize it until after my career as a therapist. But just the power of understanding just a bit about child brain development and neuroscience, so that you then are in a much better position to deal with when your kids are hitting or lashing out or digging their heels in and being stubborn and shutting down. So maybe can you
Yes.
share a bit about the,
Yeah.
the brain development side of things?
I think it's important for parents to understand that when a child is dysregulated, we're always like, "Oh, why is he giving me such a hard time?" It's really that reframe to he's having a hard time, not he's giving you a hard time. And the reason why we say that is because it all really stems from brain development, right? If we understand that the brain isn't fully developed till almost 30 years old, we parents, one thing that I work with parents is really trying to adjust their expectations because a lot of times parents are like, well, why is he doing this? And why is my 3-year-old hitting? Well, he's 3. and he doesn't have emotional regulation because and he doesn't have impulse control. And so, which again, not to get too technical with people, but the prefrontal cortex, which is, the front of our brain, that is where we have that higher order thinking. And Steph and I have it. We're adults, right? We have fully developed brains. But if we had a 3-year-old that's running around and acting out and we think that he's just, being a little jerk. He's not. He's 3, right? He really doesn't have that brain capacity yet. He literally doesn't. So when we educate ourselves about that, then I notice that parents have a lot more empathy and understanding, and they're like, "Oh, okay. So he's really not trying to just get on my nerves right now." Well, no, he's not. He's when kid, like you had mentioned before, if a kid, hits or takes a toy from their sister, or, does something, demonstrates some sort of undesirable behavior, he's trying to communicate something that he or she can't, or they can't express. And one thing that I talk about with my parents, speaking of brain development, is, and I'm sure you know this stuff, is the 3 R's by
Mm.
Dr. Bruce Perry. And this is just something that I talk about a lot with my parents to try to get them to understand how to, um, tend to a kid who is dysregulated. And for parents out there that don't know what I mean by dysregulate, when a kid is having a meltdown. When a kid is having a meltdown, again, we said earlier, their brain goes offline. So when their brain goes offline, they cannot, they can't think. All they want to do is just keep themselves safe. So the 3 R's are: first, regulate. So say your kid's having a full-on meltdown. First thing you want to do is regulate yourself, right? Because again, we cannot help a child if we don't help ourselves first. So a lot of times I'll say to a mom, if you need to just go in the other room, if your kid is safe, go in the other room and breathe, hit a pillow, do whatever you got to do to just get yourself, regulated. Then you can come and respond. That's part of emotional intelligence, responding to your children. When you regulate yourself, then you help regulate your child, right? And we do that through co-regulation. And co-regulation, parents out there, is when we are sharing our calm with our kiddos, because they have to borrow our brain pretty much so that they can, because they don't know how to calm down.
Mm.
So if they see us calm, then they will eventually start to calm. A lot of parents say to me, well, wait a minute. I tried to calm down and my kid didn't calm. Well, he's not going to calm down immediately. You have to, like, I tell
Mhm.
parents, if they can, reduce stimulation, down the lights, maybe rub the back, right? We're not using a whole lot of words when we're trying to regulate them. Then we can move into the second R, which is relate. And again, we're not really bringing a whole lot of words in yet. We can start to relate to them, maybe give them a hug when we notice that they're starting to, calm down. And sometimes this doesn't even happen in the same day, we can move to the third R, which is reason. And that's when we bring in the logic and we talk about the problem solving and what choice did you make? You hit your brother, what could we do next time? But again, it's very important that you do the 3 R's in order because I've seen a lot of parents like, my kid is flipping out and I'm trying to sit down and have a conversation with him, and like, well, you're using logic when he literally can't access the logic, in his brain. So the 3 R's are just like something that it's just gold. Work on that with parents, and really try to educate them all about how educating yourself about brain development. The 3 R's is critical for parenting,
Yeah.
emotionally intelligent parenting.
Yeah. Don't jump
Yeah.
in at the reasoning tippity top of the,
No.
like, go you're doing it backwards. And I've
Right,
been there.
right.
Like, I've been there with my kids. So whoo.
Yes.
Um I love that. I love the 3 R's. I think that's a really simple way to, just for parents who think, I don't know what to do in those moments, I freeze or I just see red. Like, just if you mentioned putting, an
Mm-hmm.
emotion wheel or a poster on your fridge, put like
Mm-hmm.
a post-it with just the 3 R's on your fridge, just
Yes.
until it becomes, you see it so much, it becomes part of the wallpaper, but then you're used to,
Right.
like, it's kind of solidified in your brain a little bit. So lots of little
Right.
tips and tricks and stuff that we can use to help us, because as you said, a lot of the time this is not the way we were raised. We were not parented
Mm-hmm.
this way, so we're kind of trying to really parent with this like outdated blueprint and we're expecting or we're wanting to see different results. We've got to be
Yes.
gentle with ourselves because we're coming from this, yeah, like sometimes 30, 40-year-old kind of framework, or, all
Mm-hmm.
those experiences make our blueprint. That's kind of what I call it. So I wanted to ask you a bit about your mindful mama meditations, because I think this is really powerful. And I'm hearing across disciplines, like from different experts and people in
Mm-hmm.
the field, mindfulness is such a powerful way to bring ourselves kind of back down to the ground, recenter, and find that place of calm, even when we
Yes.
feel like there's just chaos. So maybe tell us a bit about that.
It's really just like 15 to 20 minutes of self-care that I offer for moms or dads to come on. And I'm trained in mindfulness too. I'm a yoga teacher and a mindfulness teacher. So I love guiding. I do meditation for myself every day. It's had such a profound impact on my own personal well-being. And I want to share that with everyone. So yeah, I just do a 15-minute guided meditation. I lead the meditation. I do this on Zoom, and parents are welcome to keep their cameras on or turn them off, and just settle and just give yourself 15 minutes of just self-care. And all you're doing is just listening to me lead a meditation and just, giving yourself that dose of love. And yeah, I have a group called Calm Minds Parent Coaching, and if you're in my group, then you can have access to the Mindful Mama meditations.
This has been such a beautiful conversation, but is there any last thing you want to share with parents, from your heart before we finish off?
I think the most important thing is just trying to just infuse just maybe just 2 minutes even of self-compassion into your day. I mean, you should really be having self-compassion throughout the day, but if you just do some sort of exercise, like yesterday I did this really cool self-compassion exercise, and basically it was just um, comparing how I would treat a friend who is in distress to how I treat myself when I'm having a hard time. And boy, was that eye-opening, because I've noticed that the way I treat myself when I'm having a hard time is very different from the way or any type of advice that I would give a dear loved one. And so that really, really made me think like I really need to be more loving to myself.
It's been an absolute joy talking to you, and I hope everyone
Yes.
found lots of little, I think, golden nuggets and just pieces of wisdom that bring us back to what's really important in our family and with ourselves. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Steph. I'm so grateful to be here.
Okay, I'm back. It's me, Steph. So I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. Kristina is so beautiful, isn't she? If you guys want to go follow her, I think the best place to go is on Instagram. She's under Calm Minds. So if you type in calm 2_minds, you will find Kristina, or maybe just search her name, Kristina Manning. I'm going to put her stuff in the show notes, like I said before. So you can go and track her down. You can follow her. You can even book in for a free consult if you would like. And with the beauty of Zoom and the internet, even if you're on the other side of the world, like I am, then you can book in with her and have a conversation. I do want to let you guys know this is kind of something really new and exciting. I have just begun work on my second book. I'm very excited. I've been planning out how I can schedule time, because kids and businesses, and life and everything. I'm trying to find some ways in which I can carve out time to work on everything and manage everything else, as well as time to write my book. So it's obviously going to be around something to do with emotional intelligence and parenting and kids. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it's about. I'm going to kind of keep you guessing a little bit, but I'm aiming for it to come out early 2025. I had a very different experience writing my first book, because I wrote it over the lockdowns when COVID was kind of at its height and we were homeschooling, or the kids were home learning and all of that stuff. And actually that was before my business took off, and before all of what I do, coaching and speaking and everything, before that kind of exploded, to be honest. And I kind of credit that to because everyone, well, not everyone, but most people were home with their kids, and even dads were home with their kids when they weren't necessarily before. And so everyone was like, oh my God, this is hard. This is really stressful. And the kids are not listening and they're not doing their work, and I need to do my work. And Anyway, so you guys, a lot of you will know how that went. So I had more time to write my first book. If you guys haven't seen it or heard about it, it's called From Chaos to Connection, and that came out at the start of 2023. So, and that was an immediate Amazon bestseller, which was pretty cool. I'm really, really proud of that, and it's changed a lot of lives. I've had some great feedback. So this book is going to be a little bit different, and I think I'm going to find it a little bit harder to write. So if you have any tips on like just time management and energy management, and how to get in the zone, I remember in the mornings when it was really early and we could still go out and about, I would actually take myself off at like 6 a.m. before the kids were up and my husband, and I would head to the local cafe and I'll just open my laptop and I'll just write and write and write and write. And I would treat myself to a really nice coffee, which added up money-wise, but oh my God, it made me get my book done. So maybe I'll do that again. So that's a little bit about me. That's kind of what's happening in my world. I don't want to go on and on, but as you can maybe hear in my voice, or if you're watching on YouTube, then you will be able to see that I'm super excited about it. Yeah, I will keep you guys updated. And I'm going to head outside now because I can hear my kids and the neighbors' kids rumbling around, and I know they're all hungry for dinner. So I've got to get some dinner on. I have to plan my week ahead and do all the things and finish this cup of coffee, which is now lukewarm. Okay, parent life. Okay, guys, thank you so much. I'm sorry I waffled on towards the end, but it's kind of nice. Feels like we're having a conversation. Okay, take care. I will see you guys in the next episode. Have a good week.